It was an eye-popping moment. If you saw it, you just don't see these things like this in the NFL very often. And we will put a capper on Week 8 of the NFL season tonight when Tom Brady and the Bucs visit the Giants on ESPN's Monday Night Football. Brady and company a 13-point favorite. This is Tom's first Monday Night Football game with the Bucs, and he'll be playing it at the site of his last Monday Night Football game with the Pats. That would be MetLife Stadium. As you know, Tom's greatest regular season achievement, 16-0, wrapping it up against the Giants. But as you know, there's been some postseason misery in the Super Bowl against the G-Men a couple of times. As we're all aware, reunited tonight with a different helmet. SportsCenter is brought to you by Goodyear. Whether you're on the field or on the edge of your seat, Goodyear wants you to embrace the unexpected. Every upset, touchdown, or fourth quarter comeback, and let it move you. No matter what the season throws your way, Goodyear is here to help drive you forward. Goodyear, more driven.
I'm going to go with we'll find out maybe next week on Tua Tape. And I know that's not the world we live in right now, but I don't have something that I can point to today and say, yep, major upgrade, or yep, they made a huge mistake.
Too soon to tell. As it is in the NFL, it's a week-to-week business, and we're always making snap judgments and evaluations, but that's what we do as fans. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, presented by Progressive Insurance. It's time for Key Observations, brought to you by Geico. Whether you rent or own, Geico makes it easy to bundle home and car insurance. Go to geico.com today. Let's get it started.
Rams at Dolphins.
Well, I think when you look at the observation is the Rams, they laid an egg. I can't believe that they went all the way to Miami and did what they did. Jared Goff was god-awful at the quarterback spot, and that was the reason that Miami was able to beat them, is because of the turnovers and the inconsistent play on Jared Goff's side. I actually thought that Goff had been playing pretty good all season long, but for whatever reason, the Miami nightlife got a hold of Jared Goff, even though he wasn't out at night. And then when you look at the Dolphins side of things, Tua did what he was supposed to do, which is not screw up the game. And they won, and so that's the observation from yesterday.
Raiders at Browns.
Now, this one is interesting because the Raiders are this up and down, back and forward. What are they? But then Baker Mayfield, we all set up and said that, or at least I did. I thought Baker Mayfield would be better off without OBJ in the lineup, not because OBJ's getting on his nerves about getting the football, just because I thought he would grow at the quarterback spot, meaning he can get through his progressions. He didn't have the stress of having to get the number one guy to football. He went out there and laid an egg against the Raiders. Now, the Raiders are a good football team. Not a great team, not a bad team, but a good team that will be fighting for an AFC wildcard playoff spot. And if they get into the wildcard situation, who knows which way it can go.
Titans and Bengals.
Well, Jay Will, this one's for you. What did I say about the Titans? I told you. I told you they're not like that. They're cool. They're a good team with a good philosophy and a formula. They like to play defense, run the ball with Henry, and don't allow Ryan Tannehill to screw things up. Well, that's not good enough. I mean, that's just not good enough to win football games on a consistent basis in the National Football League. A lot of people felt as though, they should be able to just take care of business against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati got their first victory against Tennessee, man. And a lot of people had Tennessee going to the Super Bowl out of AFC if they can get past Kansas City. That's crazy. Oh, that's their second victory, actually.
Yes.
You got a second victory.
Vikings at Packers.
Now, the issue with me is the Packers defense. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not the lack of wide receivers. It's the defense. What's wrong with the Green Bay Packers defense? They allowed the Minnesota Vikings to look ridiculous on the ground. I mean, they paid big money to Kenny Clark to be a run stuffer, to do some things. He didn't play as well as he would have liked to have played. That defense has kind of been suspect all year long, and I think we finally are seeing where guys like Delvin Cook was able to take advantage of them. We're finally seeing that now. A lot of pressure is on Aaron Rodgers to continue to play ahead of everything so that this team can win games.
Jets at Chiefs.
Now, when we talk about the Jets and the Chiefs, we can only talk about one guy, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes does it again. 400-plus yards in the air, 5 touchdowns, and a pretty post. Kept the dude running and Tyreek Hill to the point where Tyreek Hill decided to jump the fence and run up in the stands and have a little fun with it. When you're looking at that, a lot of people will say, well, he's supposed to do that against the New York Jets. But you got to be flawless when you do it, because teams like this somehow win football games against the ones that they shouldn't win games against. They're having fun in Kansas City. You could just tell Patrick Mahomes allowing Tyreek Hill to jump on his back. And now, I wouldn't like that as a teammate because I don't want my quarterback getting hurt, messing around and having too much fun.
Man, Tyreek Hill weigh about 160 pounds.
Yeah, but still, all that stress on my quarterback, man, sit down somewhere.
And those are your key observations. How about throwing Big Ben? Oh, go ahead, Jay.
I was going to ask Key. So just going back to the Browns for 1 second. No, this is a random thought, but Jarvis Landry had a chance to make a couple catches that I feel like if he had made, it would have been a different conversation about Baker Mayfield.
Maybe.
It just feels like, I don't know if Baker Mayfield laid an egg. It seemed like that game plan, they kept the ball on the ground. They were running a ton. Possessions were limited. But those are the plays you feel like if you had OBJ, he makes those plays. We're having a different conversation on Monday. And the weather was horrible, too.
You see some of those balls that was dribbling at some of those receivers' feet?
No, I understand.
In the dirt.
I hear you.
That's what I'm talking about. You just thought it would be a little bit better. He didn't play. And I understand the Raiders played in the rain, too. So in the cold, in the mist.
Yeah, but they just pounded the ball. They ran the ball a ton.
But they still played in it. And so when people say, well, the weather, it's like, well, the other team had to play in the same weather we played in, plus they had to travel.
Fair point.
We should throw in, you mentioned the conditions and you mentioned how poorly both teams really played. I guess somebody had to win that game. Derek Carr threw for 112 yards and won. Baker threw for 122 and lost. I mean, that is just, that you add those up, it's not even Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes.
But the game plan, much like to Jay Will was saying, they ran the ball. Josh Jacobs, had his first 100-yard game of the season. And so when you look at those sort of things, the game plan that John Gruden rolled into Cleveland with worked for them. The game plan Cleveland put together against the Raiders didn't work.
Is there a more week-to-week team in the league than the Browns? Every time it feels like they've turned the corner.
And no Austin Hooper. I mean, no Nick Chubbs. I mean, they had no OBJ.
I never, as much as I think that they got a shot at the wild card, I never thought that they would turn. I never thought that they turned the corner. They're like the Raiders. 1 week, I'm like, yeah, cool. The next week, it's like, I don't know about this team. And that's the Raiders. They're like that in terms of a balancing act, trying to figure out what are they. You think about the Raiders against the Tampa Bay Bucks. They just look like they lost how to play football. They forgot. No. Now you go out and have somewhat of a
nondescript
game against Cleveland. They win. And now next week, whoever they play, they might go out there and lay another egg. Or they play Kansas City and they take care of business against Kansas City. And you're like, yeah, see, I told you so. That's who the Raiders are.
You're right. That's probably the best week-to-week team in the NFL. You simply never know what